This is Digital Voices with Bo Tiffany. Inspiring and providing real insight to our listeners with every story. Exploring deep stories behind every guest. Please welcome your host, Bo Tiffany.
Hey, Elzie. How are you doing today? Thanks for coming on Digital Voices.
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Been looking forward to talking to you. I guess let's kind of jump in. Where are you from?
I am originally from Chicago. I was born there, but I tell people Chicago and the rest of Illinois are two completely different animals, right?
Right.
But I was born there, and when I was around 6 years old, we moved to Southern Illinois, and that's where I was raised. So I went to elementary, high school, college, all in that general area.
What kind of interests did you have early on?
Yeah, no, music. Wrote my first song when I was about 5 years old.
Okay.
I played basketball all through elementary and high school. I've always been the type of person that if you put a microphone in my face, I could do something with it, whether that was singing, speaking, now podcasting. I always tell people the two things that all of my passions involve is a microphone and me talking. So I kind of knew that part of myself early on.
Nice. A born performer.
Yes.
Did you have encouragement in that area?
Not really. My mom wasn't really into music. My grandmother was a gospel singer, and my dad was in a band as well. But so it's in the genes. But I didn't have anyone necessarily pushing me that way. Mm-hmm. My mom was always, if you're interested in something, she's always supporting you. She didn't really care what it was. It could have been basket weaving or growing worms. She would have supported it either way.
As long as you're applying yourself, huh?
Yes. Yep. As long as I'm happy, she's happy.
So you went from Chicago to a rather small town in Southern Illinois.
Yeah. When I say small, no stoplights, one grocery store, one gas station. That kind of small. Everybody knows everybody. You wave at people on the street multiple times a day because you see the same people. Really, really small.
Was that a culture shock coming from Chicago?
Not really. I was so young that I hadn't shaped my culture yet.
Sure.
So it was welcome. I think at the time, the things that were going on in my life, it was what I needed. I needed to be in a place that was more community driven and focused, and where people helped each other, and not the city. Not to say there's anything wrong with the city. I don't want people sending nasty emails, but it was what we needed. It was what we needed, and I'm so glad that my mom made that decision. It was a really pivotal period of my life.
Well, I had to give you some foundational aspects in terms of a community sense. Obviously, if everybody knows everybody and everybody's helping everybody, there's a certain community spirit that you get in a small town that you might not get per se in like Chicago. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. And to me, it gave me a chance to really explore, climb trees, fish for crawdads in the creek and things like that, and learn how to fish and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really, really great childhood.
Just be a kid. Yeah. No, that's great. Coming from a small town and bringing up those values, what do you think you took most from that experience?
I really learned how to be independent. My mom, there were four of us, and naturally she had to work and take care of us. It was she was a single mom for a large part of my upbringing, and so she was at work a lot, which is part of it, right? And so I had to learn how to be independent and learn how to navigate without having her there as much, right, as I wanted her there. And so even to this day, I'm very independent. Give me opportunity and a pencil and a microphone, and I can make magic happen. So I think that was one of the things that has stuck with me into adulthood, is just kind of being a go-getter and being able to say, maybe I don't have everything I think I need, but I have enough to do what I need to do.
Yeah. Now, you early on got into rapping. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I started singing when I was 5. So I've been kind of in and out of the music. When I first started, I was really into R&B and soul. I hated rap. My older sister would watch. This is way back in the day. I'm dating myself, when videos came on TV and teenagers would watch them after school every day. Mm-hmm. I used to absolutely hate rap because my older sister would play it all the time, and I just didn't like it. And as I got older, I really developed an appreciation for it because I don't know if you are into music at all, but rap is harder than it looks, right?
Absolutely.
There's the freestyling and being able to put concepts and words together, and it's very cultural. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people don't appreciate it because if you're not in the culture, you don't understand the references. And these rappers, man, they make these references that are just amazing. And so I started, getting into rap and started traveling. And funny fact, people have actually paid me United States dollars to perform. And so technically I'm a professional performer because I have been paid to do it. But so did that for a few years. And then I found faith. I'd always had faith, but I got serious about my faith and started doing what was affectionately called gospel rap, Christian rap, traveling to different churches and doing that. And then started doing singing, worship, things like that. And so I've gone from soul, R&B, I've done rap, I've done worship, and so I've done rap worship. So I've done a lot of eclectic type of styles.
But it got used to having a microphone and speaking, I'm assuming, especially in front of crowds. That might have been one of those foundational pillars that kind of helped you as you got older.
For sure. It really taught me things like how to read a crowd. If you're singing and or speaking and there's a person in the back at the table asleep, probably should make some adjustments in whatever you're doing or saying. Right? How to read body language. Like, you can tell people, even when they try to hide it, they give you signals on if they're enjoying what you're doing or if they're not. And so those are the type of lessons. How to keep a straight face. I can't tell you the things that you see when you're on that stage, but you have to continue to perform or sing or speak or whatever it is that you're doing, and be focused on the moment, but still enjoying everything that's happening in that environment. And so, as a podcaster, it's much the same. When I'm on video calls with people, you can tell if you ask a question that they don't appreciate or if they're bored or whatever. And so, yeah, you're right. Those are those soft skills that I carry with me today.
So how did you get into podcasting? What started you down that road?
It was kind of on accident, Bo, because I was doing working my day job. I've always known I wanted to be an entrepreneur, even when I was a teenager. And my plan was I was going to go get a degree, get a good job, get married, have some kids, and do my side hustle until I didn't have to do my side hustle anymore and quit my job and do my thing. Well, the plan worked, but it just took a little bit longer than I anticipated. And so I got to an inflection point where it's like, okay, whatever I'm doing now is not working. Is at this rate, I'll be 77, still trying to work this plan. And so I said, man, what can I do to get over this hump? Because what I'm doing is not working. I said, okay, I'll start an internet radio show called Enterprise Now. I'll have a station and I'll have other business shows on my station. And that's how I was going to learn business from business people. Because if I just reach out cold, they're not going to let me pick their brain.
Right.
But if I have a show and I'm giving them free promotion, they'll give me 45 minutes of their time.
Right.
So that's what I did. I launched Enterprise Now back in 2016, and it worked beautifully. I started with my barber. I had hair. And I said, hey, I'm starting this show. Would you be my first guest? He's like, sure. So and then I went through all the business owners that I knew that in my circle, and I cycled through them. And then a funny thing started to happen. people started to get wind of the show and started to reach out to me to be on the show. And eventually it grew to the point where PR agencies and entrepreneurs from really all over the world were pitching me to be on the show. And I learned so many business lessons, marketing, things like low cost experimentation, pricing, and all sorts of business concepts that eventually allowed me to quit my day job, start my own business full time. And so that's literally how I got into podcasting. I didn't start out wanting to be a podcast entrepreneur. It just sort of happened when I saw the opportunity that people need to know the tech behind podcasting and the marketing and all the stuff that goes along with a successful podcast brand that I had done because I had built one. I just started offering the service to people. And that's how the business side of what I do was born.
Nice. It's interesting to me just because we all get into, at least I like to think we all get into podcasting kind of for selfish reasons. For you, you wanted to kind of pick the brains of people that you wouldn't normally be able to learn from. I'm in the same boat too. It's amazing how much we learn as a host. So I almost feel like it's a little selfish hosting just because everybody I have on usually for a particular reason, and it's to learn. And hopefully as I'm learning, listeners will learn too. So yeah, I completely agree with that. So you have a nickname, or maybe it's a title. I'm not sure, but you go by the Mayor. Can you explain that?
Yes. So I am, excuse me, I am a huge fan of coaches and coaching. If I had to go back and do this whole entrepreneur journey over, the first thing I would do is get a coach. And so I share that because this is pertinent to the story. So I was in a session with my coach at the time. We were talking marketing and business, and I was sharing my vision for the company and things like that. And he kind of pauses and he looks off into space, which is always a dangerous thing for creative people to do. And he looks at me and he says, "Elzie, you're the mayor. The way you show up, the way you connect people, the way you are, you preside, you're the mayor. I'm going to call you the mayor." And I said, okay. So I started testing it in social media and around in my circles. And a lot of people agreed. They were like, yeah, I think that fits you, your personality, your brand, the feel of the company. Yeah. The mayor of Podcast Town. And so it just kind of stuck. It's one of those things where as much as I can say it was a brilliant thing that I came up with, I am the most strategically random person you will ever meet. It was strategic, but it was kind of random at the same time.
Sure. It's funny how you talked about networking in some of the promo material that I've seen of yours. And I think that's the most important part of all of this. And it's amazing how networking, that 6 degrees of separation, will open doors or lead you to people that you never thought you'd talk to or even be able to learn from. What are some of your highlights? And can you tell me about your networking experience?
Yeah. I network heavily, and not necessarily to get anything. And I think that's the point. I genuinely enjoy meeting people, hearing their stories, and figuring out how I can connect them to get them to the next level. Maybe it's the coach in me, because I love seeing people succeed. I had a podcast group a couple of years ago, and to see some of the folks that were in that group now doing things that they wanted to do when we talked, that gets me up in the morning. I'm like, wow, not necessarily because of me, but I played a part in that journey by bringing them together and exposing them to what they could be. And for me, that's why I network, and I think that's the power of networking. Because to your point, you meet so many cool people, and when you do it right and not to get, you really, really get what's called a high return on relationship, or ROR, because people see that, they sense that, and then they want to give that back to you. And so for me, it's the crux in the fabric of what I do.
Yeah. You now have been growing. Tell me a little bit on how your podcast has grown and the network and platform that you've built.
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold. Excuse me. So Enterprise Now has been through a couple of iterations since we first started. Initially, it was a general podcast by nature, because I didn't want to limit the people that I could learn from. And I tell podcasters all the time, be very intentional about why you started your podcast and follow that and double down on it, because that's how you're going to achieve success, is by being really intentional and understanding why you started the show in the first place. And so for me, it was general because I wanted to talk to everybody. I wanted to talk to business owners in the shoe business, in the car wash business, in whatever. And it worked great because I learned so many different concepts and principles from all different industries. Well, as my business grew, that no longer served the purpose anymore. I needed to niche down and focus more. And so now we're restructuring and focusing on diverse B2B enterprisers, right? People who were where I was 6 years ago, right? Because it's very difficult to lead someone where you haven't been. And I've been where they are. I know what it's like to get passed up for promotions. I know what it's like to have a side gig, but not feel comfortable letting your employer know that you have one. I know what it's like to plan your exit out of corporate. I know what the year one feels like. And so Enterprise Now is now reforming and reshaping to serve that audience. Very, very niche, very focused, but very necessary for where the podcast is today. Podcast Town, which is the agency that I run, same thing. We're really honing in on who we serve best and doubling down on that.
So kind of adapting and evolving is looking at the needs and future needs of your market and trying to cater towards those new needs, correct?
Absolutely. I think that you have to, as a podcaster, which you are a business owner, whether you like it or not, you have to adapt. The biggest thing I would say is just listening. Ironically, as podcasters, we talk a lot, but the more important skill is to listen. Yeah. Again, if you listen to the market, it will tell you what it needs. And it will tell you what it does not need in the form of not buying your product or service. Right. And so being able to adapt and to listen to that, and it's an art, not as much a science, but understanding how passion and what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, how that intersects with what the market is telling you that they want and need. Because it's a spectrum. There's a point where your passion will not generate revenue, but there's a part on the curve where that intersects, right? You're passionate, you're good at it, the market wants it, the market needs it, and you understand how to market it so that the market understands what you offer and how you serve their need, right? Mm-hmm. So those are all things that, again, as a podcaster, getting good at listening, getting good at, to my earlier example, looking at the person in the back of the room, right? Are they asleep? Are they excited? Are they coming up to you after you're done saying, man, that was a great podcast. I really got a lot out of it. So really, again, just paying attention to those and honing in on those soft skills will benefit you really, whether you're a podcaster or a business owner, which is often the same.
Those listening skills, I don't think there's anything more important. It allows you to absorb. And so I agree with that 100%. Let's look a little bit at the foundations of your podcast. One thing I still struggle with is exposure and marketing. What were the first steps that you started to take towards that, and how did you get that off the ground?
But one of the first things I did was just get really, really good at following up with my guests, making it easy for them to share, and asking them really, really detailed, pointed questions in the green room. For what I mean is, when I would do my show, and I still do this to this day, I would ask my guests, if you were me, what would you be doing? It's a really broad, open question on purpose. And one day somebody said, well, I would help people start podcasts because obviously you know how to do that. So that's what I would do, low-hanging fruit. That had never occurred to me, ironically, never crossed my mind, because at the time that wasn't a thing. There weren't a ton of podcast production agencies, and podcasting was not what it is today. So that was not even the thought in the back of my mind. And so I thought, it's a pretty cool idea. Let me try it. And here we are today, right? And so the first thing I would say is really get good at leveraging the guests as a focus group, and so to speak, and to get feedback on what they see, because they're going to have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. On the promotion and marketing side of things, it's really different than any other medium, which is good, but it can be frustrating. Because with other things, you can do a Facebook ad and people will go into the top of your funnel and then they become clients. But with podcasting, it's such a relationship-driven medium that there are no shortcuts. You simply have to get out there, build relationships, serve people, build more relationships, serve people again, and rinse and repeat. It's not a quick, unless you're already famous and have a following. You literally have to just get out there, build relationships, help people get what they want, and rinse and repeat. On the practical side, social is huge. Making sure that you're thoughtfully sharing your episodes, not being lazy and saying, "Hey, episode 7 is out. Listen." People don't want to listen to that. Right. Taking the nuggets out of your episode, and maybe there's a question or a concept that came out of the episode, posting that, understanding which format to post on which platforms. For example, TikTok is short form, more so funny or serious. It can be both, but short form content, whereas LinkedIn is generally longer form, and they're changing that a little bit with the push with video, but really just understanding the platform and not just replastering it everywhere just because you don't want to do the work. Right. The other thing I would say is starting and developing your email list. That'll serve you well in the long run. And then having a website. It used to not be as important as it is now. But as more and more people get into podcasting, people are vetting you. They want to know that you're serious. They want to know that they're spending their time well. And so if you're just starting out, or if you are leveling up, I would say get a website, get an email list, be really intentional about helping other people get what they want, building relationships, and they already say email list, and then just really being intentional about what you post on social.
I totally agree about the mediums. Some areas you want to have snippets that will bring them in to watch the full episode, if you will. And I think that's important, because if you're only doing audio for your podcast, it's good for a certain audience, but it also eliminates a good 75% of the audience, because most people are more apt to watch a podcast on video, in my opinion. Do you agree?
Yes and no. I think it depends. Audio is very passive. For example, I can listen to it while I'm mowing the lawn, while I'm washing dishes, while I'm exercising, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Video, not so much. I think you get a different type of viewer when it's video, which, to your point, is fine. I think you if you're comfortable doing both, definitely do both because you want to capture as many people as possible. But it goes back to really understanding your listener, viewer, and what they want. You might have a segment that they're really busy. They don't have time to watch a 30-minute podcast or listen to a 30-minute podcast. So maybe your podcast is 7 minutes long or 5 or 12.
Right.
But that's the work that you do on the front end to really understand who your listeners are, what they want, where they hang out. If they hang out on YouTube, you should probably be on YouTube. If they watch long form video, well, by golly, give them long form video. So it really just goes back to understanding who you're talking to, what they want, where they hang out, and just showing up where they are.
Do you have tips to identify your viewer base?
I would say ask them. And this is where social comes in. Because again, it's back to the back of the room analogy. If you make a post about basket weaving and you get 17 comments and 17 shares, and then you make a comment about football and you hear crickets, that's some indication, right? That the people that are in your sphere, they might like basket weaving. And then it's just a matter of continuing to foster and build those relationships and then ask more questions. And really, there are scientific ways to do research as well, where you can do queries on Facebook and LinkedIn and kind of get a sense of what people are, what keywords are trending, what keywords are popular, that type of thing, and then shaping your audience around that. And also identifying somebody who is doing something similar to you and watching them, see what they post, see how they post. Are they doing video? How long are their videos? What's the structure and format of their shows? And not copying it, but just observing and using that as really free research to see, okay, I've noticed every time this person does this type of post, they get a ton of engagement. I wonder if I could tweak it, make it my own, and then test it. If it goes well, do more. If it doesn't, stop. Do something different, and then just iterate.
You touched on something that's important. There's a ton of tools, like everything from Google Trends to, ability to find out where your listeners are coming from. Those additional tools I found really helpful. So I'm glad that you touched on that. Anything else that you might use that would be helpful for someone that's just starting out?
I would say, too, really pay attention to your analytics, because to your point, it'll give you a sense of where your listeners are, how long they're listening, that type of thing. And it can be overwhelming because we have access to so many tools and so many research platforms. So I would say really get your top 3 and then really, really understand how to use them, how to read and analyze the data, and then make your adjustments from there.
Where do you see your podcast going in the future? You've grown it this far. What's the next level for you?
The next level is in 2023, 2024. Enterprise Now is going to be doing a live podcast tour in multiple cities, and we're going to help people maximize their brands and level up.
Amazing. That sounds fun. Traveling, meeting new people, that networking. Yeah, that should be a great experience.
Yep.
So as you're doing this, have you ever thought about writing a book on your experiences or where do you see yourself carrying this in 10 years?
10 years. Wow. 10 years. I don't know if I'll still be doing Enterprise Now, but for sure I'll be in the podcast industry. Because I think in 10 years, it'll be bigger, it'll be better. And a lot of people are going to become entrepreneurs in this industry and in this space. And we are going to be a part of that movement. We're going to be a part of helping podcasters, creators grow their brands into viable businesses.
That's great. Any highlights what that you've learned on this journey? What sticks out in your mind? Any stories or anything that you'd like to share? What's the big one for you?
The biggest thing I would say is, and this might sound a bit cliche, but it's true. Nothing amazing happens in the comfort zone. And that's easy to say, but being uncomfortable is the number one way to grow. Doing the things that don't feel like you know what you're doing, right? You're going to be really bad at it at first, and being okay with that. Being okay with jumping out there and doing things that you're not going to be an expert in at first. But then you grow, you learn, you research, you iterate, you fall down, you get up, and you repeat that process. That's been the number one thing that I've learned. It's just really stepping out of my comfort zone, meaning my literally 6-figure corporate day job, and going into entrepreneurship and figuring it out. Wasn't easy. It was stressful, which is why I think my hair left me, but it was definitely worth it. And I would not trade the journey for the world.
Well, and you're lucky you've had a partner for the last 20 years that's been by your side through this whole thing.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about that. What's the secret to a great marriage? Most people seem to have a tough time making it past just a few years. 20 is a landmark, especially when you start it early on.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is just being committed. Love is great. It's a great thing to have. You want that. But just deciding that I'm committed and I'm going to make this work, and being selfless and not selfish. I think that the large part of the issue is people are selfish. They want what they want, and they don't consider the needs of other people first. To quote the Bible, Christ said that love your wife as Christ loved the church. He was willing to die for the church. Yeah. And that's a heavy statement. And sometimes people aren't willing to go to that level of commitment. Is it easy? No. But is it worth it? Of course. So I think that's the number one thing, is just being committed, being selfless, and being authentic and true, and communication.
That's great. And it's nice to have your biggest cheerleader next to you the whole time. Share those journeys and experiences.
Yes.
This has been great. Let me ask you, is there anything I can promote for you? Anything that's coming up in the near future?
No, the biggest thing right now is, again, we're restructuring, relaunching Enterprise Now. So if people want to check that out, that would be awesome.
Okay.
And then I just launched my personal brand this year. So if you want to go to elzieflenard.com to check that out, that would be amazing as well.
Yeah, and I'll have links in the description. For me, this has been enjoyable. I encourage you listeners to take a look at the description and the links, and to see the mayor / Elzie Flenard and his podcast. I appreciate your time today, and thank you for reaching out and connecting with me. Thank you for coming on, Elzie. This has been a lot of fun for me, and I wish you a great day.
Cool. Thank you so much. I had a blast.
This has been Digital Voices with Bo Tiffany, exploring deep stories from real-life guests with real-life experiences, providing insight to our listeners with every story. Stay up to date on future podcasts by bookmarking Digital Voices with Bo Tiffany.podbean.com, and follow Bo on social media by searching Digital Voices with Bo Tiffany. Have an idea for a future story? Send your idea to acrmadison@gmail.com. Until next time, grab life by the horns and keep inspiring others.